Good morning, folks. I've got 9:01. We're going to give it a few more minutes for our fellow select woman to join us, Catherine. So stay tuned.
Is anybody talking? Speaking?
There wasn't, I spoke and just was giving
Okay.
Catherine a couple more minutes to join us. She has joined us, so I've got 9:04. And I will call the meeting to order.
Yeah, I did have a little trouble with the link.
I did too. It was a little late, it seemed, on being able to get in, but
Yeah.
I think everybody's in now.
Mike had a customer downstairs. That's why he was late getting in.
Okay, all right. So all members are present. Here from the public. I notice we have two people. Matt Grouse has joined us and someone named Daniel.
I
Daniel,
believe that's Daniel Melnick from Eastford.
do you care to identify yourself, Daniel? Okay, just for the record, we don't allow people to participate in discussions unless they are identified to us. Here from the public, Matt, are you there to address the board? I see you, but I can't hear you. You're
You're on
still.
mute.
Mike, can you unmute Matt?
There we go.
There
I
we
got
go.
it. I found it. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Yeah, I'm here. Yes, here to address the board.
The floor is yours.
Okay.
Three-minute limit.
Okay. I sent you a letter via email this morning, Mr. Folletti, and you can forward it around to the other selectmen. My intention was to read the letter, so I'll just go ahead. It is addressed to the members of the Board of Selectmen of Ashford. My name is Matthew Grouse. I am the pastor of Westford Congregational Church in Ashford. I have recently been made aware that the town clerk has resigned her position as editor of the Ashford Citizen. I was shocked to read her letter of resignation in which she accused a local church of, quote, threatening her and Mr. Folletti with legal action unless their letters of religious testimony posed as advertisements were published, end quote. She also characterized the attempt to advertise the church with a letter to the Ashford community as a, quote, direct and hostile challenge to our rather old-fashioned and naive little newsletter, end quote. A copy of the clerk's email is attached to my email to you. Westford Congregational Church submitted several letters for publication in the Ashford Citizen, the first of which was published without incident in the January 2023 issue. The letters were intended as an advertising campaign to open a dialogue with the people of Ashford, introducing the church and its new pastor to them and inviting their attendance. Our second submission was denied publication. On January 24th, the town clerk sent an email indicating that she had consulted with the town attorney regarding the content of Westford's letter and that it did not fit the criteria. Westford Congregational Church requested a copy of the official guidelines for submission to the citizen. Upon receipt of those guidelines, it became very clear to us that our submission did in fact fit them and that the criteria referenced in the clerk's email must be something outside the published guidelines. After repeated attempts to resolve this misunderstanding via text, email, phone, and face-to-face conversations, on February 10th, Westford Congregational Church consulted with attorney David Bodanza regarding the legal precedents of the matter. On February 14th, attorney Bodanza sent a letter to Mr. Folletti and the town clerk outlining those precedents and politely asking the town to change its position and print our advertisements. There was no threat of litigation, nor was the tone of the letter threatening. A copy of that letter is also attached to the email I sent you. The clerk's accusations and her characterization of my church's actions and intentions are entirely false and slanderous. I am requesting a formal and public apology from the town clerk for these careless statements which besmirch my church's reputation and misrepresent our character and intentions. The escalation of this unfortunate misunderstanding to this level has caused me to reflect on the social climate of our town. Freedom of speech is a cornerstone of our American society. The idea that any public official would be allowed to censor content or discriminate based on the viewpoint of a paid advertisement in a town publication is disturbing. Also disturbing is the fact that to date, there has not been an official response to Attorney Bodanza's letter after more than 3 months. Though some of the citizens of Ashford may be old-fashioned, myself included, I do not believe that many are naive. Though we do not always agree with the opinions or beliefs of others, we are civil and tolerant of one another and are able to read the viewpoints of others without being threatened by them. There are indeed certain mentalities in this town that we would do well to pay attention to, lest we sacrifice our freedoms on the altar of the offended. Respectfully yours, Matthew Grouse, pastor of the Westford Congregational Church.
Bill, would it be okay if I respond to this?
Yeah, I don't want to set a precedent with this, but if you want to make a brief response, you can.
Mr. Grouse, apparently you're not aware that the Ashford Citizen is a local government issued newsletter. It's paid for. You may have had paid for an advertisement, but the letter, the newsletter itself is paid for by the taxpayers of the town of Ashford. Not all of those taxpayers would appreciate the religious testimony that was put forth in your 3 letters, of which there were very little changes between them. And that is why it was looked at in the light that it was. We have people here who are Jewish, who are atheist, who are Muslim, and who are Hindu. And we don't put forth things that are religious testimony. What we do is, through the advertisements, you're allowed to put forth the dates and times of your activities, like the other churches and synagogues, should they choose to do so, and other groups. But we don't put religious testimony out in the Ashford Citizen, which is, again, a government issued newsletter. It is not, this is not a freedom of speech issue. You have the internet, you've got Facebook, you've got whatever you put out otherwise through Westford Congregational Church, which, by the way, I used to attend. You have all those vehicles, as do the other churches and religious organizations and any organization in this town. So again, that was religious testimony. That was certainly my reaction when I read it. And when we saw the letter from the attorney, that when we get a letter from an attorney, that is treated as a potential litigation. The Ashford Citizen editor has been trained over many years in ethics, and she has always done a great job of determining what is appropriate to go into the Citizen. She represents the best. So I don't feel that an apology is in order. She was speaking her truth.
Can I respond?
That's up to you, Bill.
I'm going to make an exception here, but you know, we're happy to put things on the agenda for further discussion. But in this instance, Matt, a brief response if you'd like. You can go proceed.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill.
Catherine, I hear you clearly. And it would have been very nice of us to have a conversation regarding the requirements before now. I don't necessarily agree with all that you have said, and I will leave that for a later time when we actually have time to have a gentlemanly discussion about these things. None of that changes the fact that the town clerk accused me and my church of threatening the town with litigation, which is a false and slanderous statement and besmirches the character of my church. And the town clerk, with all of her education and years of experience, ought well to know the difference between a letter and a threat of litigation, because there was no threat of litigation in the letter. And it was simply a polite request that the town change their stance because the legal precedents were not on the town side in that case. And that is an argument we can have at a later date. But I do believe that the town clerk's words are slanderous, and I stand on my request for an apology for those.
Thank you, Pastor Grouse.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for hearing me today.
You have a good day.
You too.
All right, seeing no other public to be heard or identified, I'm going to proceed with the first selectman's briefing. Just for the record, the referendum that was held on May 2nd, all three questions passed. The town vote was 200 in favor, 63 opposed. Region 19 was 201 in favor, 62 opposed. And the Board of Education was 180 in favor and 83 opposed. Obviously, it was an overwhelming approval of the budget presentations. And again, I thank everybody for their involvement in it. I will say that one of the disappointing facts out of over about 2,400 registered voters in town, we had a turnout of about 263. And I'm looking forward to our board putting our heads together and take a look on how we can improve that. What I have looked into, of course, we met the legal requirement of doing an ad in the Chronicle, which obviously has very limited publication in town. But we also did a front page through our Ashford Citizen, facilitated by our town clerk at the time, who was our editor. We did a front page notice of this meeting, with the understanding that the electors of the town would receive that prior to the meeting itself, of course. I've been doing a personal survey, and many of the residents of town did not receive the Citizen until the Wednesday after the town meeting, which certainly was in our intent. We're advised by our printer. It was delivered to the post office on the Friday before then. I did receive mine on Saturday. I've talked to a couple of people that have, but apparently that was a limited distribution. So I'm just sharing it with the board because my intention is to have a meeting with the postmaster and get a better clarification on when we can plan on these issues actually being put into the postal patron boxes as well as the mailboxes for which we're paying for. So I don't know if that had a major impact on getting the word out there, but it certainly didn't help things. So,
Well, another factor, as you saw, what we have 9 people in total at our town meeting.
correct.
The town meeting was not advertised the way it needed to be. I had trouble finding the notice for it. It was not put under town meetings out on the town website. So when people went to look for it, they didn't know where to look.
Yeah.
And, I struggled with it. So I called the town clerk's office to find out if they knew where it was. And so it should have been, in the headline thing, it should have been where town meetings are. And it probably should have been posted under selectmen meetings as well. But the town meeting section is definitely where it should have been and where it has been in the past. So I think that was part of the reason that we had so few, absolutely the least number of people at a town meeting that I've ever experienced in my 27, 28 years here.
Well, certainly, and very obviously, there's a lot of room for improvement. I've had a brief discussion with the new editor of the Citizen, and these are one of the things that I think that we'll take a look at, and together with a review of our webmaster to figure out if from our end of it, how we can improve that situation. Because while we value the 263 people that did participate, it was disappointing. It wasn't a lot more. Last year's budget had over double that amount participate. So obviously it's something for us to work on.
Yeah, I think the presentations were pretty lackluster. I'd love to see a little more enthusiasm in what's being presented.
Yeah.
It was definitely lackluster.
Okay, moving on. Southworth Drive project is 99% complete. The only exceptions are some backfilling of some new curbing that was installed and some minor grading. That's in process right now, but if you've had a chance to take a look at it, the road came out very nice. Camper Drive is our next project on the agenda. Public Works will be addressing some draining on that road as well as some regrading. And if they haven't started already, I understand they'll be doing that. The Ashford School new generator and auto transfer switch has been formally ordered. One of the disappointments that I had in reviewing the contract was that there's a potential of a 32-week delay because of supply chain issues on potential delivery of the generator. And I've spoken with our insurance carrier, Hartford Steam Boiler, and also with the contractor who was supplying this, and asked them if there's any way that we can expedite that. And I'll certainly keep the board updated on that. I mean, if we think of worst case scenario and figure this out 32 weeks, we're talking about a delivery date of this January of the generator sometime in mid-December, which obviously is in the middle of winter and also the holiday season. So we're going to try to improve in that, but all of the formal ordering and everything has already been completed. So I'll keep you posted on that. The Ashford School fuel tank replacement project is on schedule. The tank is scheduled to be delivered on June 16th. I'm insured by our, I see your hand there. I'll get to you in 1 second. I've spoken with our contractor and they are very optimistic that the project will be completed before the start of school or the restart of school. So that's proceeding accordingly. There was a meeting of the Ashford School Building Committee I participated in last week. There's a meeting coming up on Wednesday with the goal of finalizing an RFP for architectural services. There were two things that I addressed the committee about that I'd like to at least start on trying to develop, then that would be working out a draft timeline of the roof project. As you know, we've been talking about the summer of 24, which is still our goal. But what I'd like to do is figure on that date and work back and try to figure out a timeline that we can start trying to put together for that. And the other thing is, I've asked them to come up with an estimate of what our front money will be in the $5 million bond that was approved by the town at town meeting. We have the ability to, there's three, and I mentioned this to the board before, but there's three opportunities for us to come up with front money. One, if the Board of Finance went along with it, we could self-finance that with the understanding it would be reimbursed. We could do a temporary loan from one of our lenders for that amount. Or we could go in and issue temporary bond, which I've discussed all three of these options with our bond, with our finance advisor. Obviously, the least expensive of those three is to self-finance and then reimburse ourselves when we get the grant. I've heard
Bill, I'm sorry, Bill, you mentioned RFP for professional services.
Correct.
Professional services covering what?
Architectural and engineering.
Does that also, that doesn't include the project manager and the clerk of the works?
Not there. What I'm hearing from the committee is their thought is to get this RFP as their number one priority. Then when they bring the architect on board, they will be advertising for clerk of the works.
What about the project manager?
Well, I think we're talking one and the same. I think it's just a
No.
matter of job description. But those are on the agenda for and I don't know if it's going to be brought up tomorrow at the at the building committee meeting or not, but I'm going to attend and I will bring up both of those.
Is this,
things
the
again.
school building committee is an advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen?
That's correct.
Then we would be the ones deciding what would be needed once based upon their recommendation.
That's the typical process.
Can I
Yeah.
butt in for a minute? You have to remember that there are two building committees.
This is
That
the
we
school
have-
building committee.
There's the big building committee, and then there's the building committee, the smaller building committee that is directly responsible for the project. So would they be the project managers?
No,
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 they're-
you need a
they're-
professional project manager.
both of those committees are strictly advisory to the Board of Selectmen.
Correct. And the
they're
one
well-
you're
They're
speaking,
well aware
the-
of that.
and Bill, the one you're speaking of, you called it the school building committee. Is this the smaller one? That's for the
No.
roof?
This is for the roof.
Okay, so this is the school roof building
correct.
committee. Thank you.
So I will
So-
keep you appraised of that, and also once they have made a formal recommendation on the RFS for those services, I will share them with the board for board approval to go ahead and issue those. Matt, you had your hand up. I'm in the middle of a first selectman briefing, but
I'm sorry, sir. I totally forgot when I was speaking before when I had the floor to ask that my letter be included as part of the minutes with its attachments. That's all.
it will be. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep. The senior center will be holding a health clinic this coming Saturday. I encourage anybody that's interested. I understand there are going to be very multiple vendors there. I'd encourage anybody that can to please attend. There are two items that I'd like to add to our agenda at the appropriate time. One is further discussion on the citizen. I want to bring the board up to date on some of the research that I've been doing with Savage and related items. And also, we've got a tax refund that at the appropriate time, I'll be asking for a motion to add to the agenda. All right, acceptance of the regular meeting of April 25th, 23. Do I have a motion?
I'm not sure I saw the minutes. I went looking through my,
I didn't
Catherine,
either.
did you get the minutes?
All right, why don't we delay that, move that
Nope.
to our next meeting?
Okay.
Chris, would you check on that? I was of the impression the minutes had been sent out. Hearing none. Item 6, hear from boards, commissions, and committees. Hear from boards, commissions, and committees, seeing none. Well,
Wait, I can say something about the I'm trying to remember what we're calling it, the cemetery committee.
Yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to let you know that the 3 members of that committee are coordinating, and we are planning to do some walkthroughs on the cemeteries before we make our recommendations.
very good. Thank you. All right, moving on to old business, status of the Ashford School child care program. Just 2 items. One, as I mentioned at our last meeting, I did have a meeting with the superintendent, and she was going to be consulting with their council. I have not had a chance to have a follow-up meeting with Cindy. Been a little busy, both from her end and ours, but I will do that and keep you appraised. The only other thing, Dave Roston was kind enough to do up several job description drafts. We don't need to take any action on that now, but just remind both of you, if you could take a look at those. Perhaps at our next meeting, we can discuss those. I don't have anything else regarding that. Catherine, did you?
Not on that one, thank you.
Roger?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Item 8, new business. And we have a guest joining us here. Melissa is with us, our social service, youth service coordinator, director person. We've asked her to join us to give us an overview on the work that she's been doing coordinating on the renters' rights in town. Melissa, the floor is yours. Can you see Melissa there?
Can you hear her?
Maybe you have to come over to that chair.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hi, Melissa.
I don't have a big update. So we had the town meeting where we asked residents to share their complaints.
Did you need that?
I do not.
Okay.
We sent a letter to Up Realty saying that we were aware that there was many issues and asked them to, work with us. We have not heard back from them. We've also kind of gotten stuck. We went to the Eastern Highlands Health District to get copies of reports that have been filed by tenants, and they haven't been able to give them to us. They claim that they need like the exact date that they were filed, and when people don't remember what date they filed, we're not able to get them. They also filed a complaint with the building department, and I'm not sure where that is currently, like if they've issued any kind of citations or anything like that. Because there's definitely safety hazards that I would
Yes.
assume go against building code. So I need to find out what they're doing.
I'm curious as to why Eastern Highlands can't manage to pull the copies of the reports, since
I
they
know.
told me they are. When I sat in Bill's seat, they were very clear that they had quite a bit of information.
Yeah, and we know that people have been filing them. They keep telling us, oh, if you don't have the exact date and the name that it's under, we can't pull it for you.
That
Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
I'll also follow up on that. I did have a discussion with Lynette Swanson from Eastern Highland, who said that, and that there was nothing in writing or a formal, it was just we were talking about a number of different issues. That things had improved at several of the apartment complexes regarding renovations that they were doing.
So it's improving because as people are leaving, they're
They're upgrading.
renovating those
Yeah.
apartments, but the people that are currently living there, they're not renovating those apartments.
I understand there are a number of people that are in units that have not been renovated, that have been offered replacement units or units that have been and they've refused.
That
Are
I've
you
never
aware?
been told.
Okay.
Bill,
Lynn-
where are you getting your information from?
I'm relaying an informal conversation I had with Lynette Swanson, who's our, Lynette
Yes.
from Eastern Highland.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily true or not, though. And there is the chance that if they were offered, it might have been at a higher price, because they're in an unrenovated, so.
Yeah.
I bet you Up Realty said, oh, if you pay $300 more a month, you can move into this renovated apartment.
I'll ask Lynette to elaborate and be a little more specific on that.
I would suggest that, first of all, the complaints are going directly to Eastern Highland from the tenants, or are they going to Lynette?
Whenever someone calls me with a complaint, I say you can either call Eastern Highlands or I send them the online form to fill out.
I would, if I were you, I would also let Lynette know that you've heard from someone about a complaint, so that she can make sure she helps track them.
Okay.
And as far as the building department, when these complaints have come in, what is the building department doing? Are they going and inspecting?
That I do not know.
So I believe they're having meetings in the building department, the staff there, kind of coordinating with each other. You might want to ask, what their actions are that they're taking.
All right, I can check in with Katie.
Yeah, I did ask for a meeting and I participated. It ended up, we did a coordinated meeting because there are a couple of sites in town that I have concerns out. Lynette was there, town council was there. Mike D'Amato was there. The new Jim Rupert was there, Rich. And I've asked for better coordination and updates on what's going on different sites, and I think we ought to include this in it. I understand they try to meet weekly informally, but I'd like to
You should.
formalize that and get more input so one hand knows what the other's doing here.
Right. Well, I think it's great that they're meeting. I know when I tried to attack this, it was very difficult.
Yep.
You know,
Anything else?
I would like to be able to start, I'm gonna blank on what it's called, like a rental commission.
Fair rent
A
commission.
fair rent commission, with other local towns, because I think it'd probably be more effective to have several towns involved. But having the time to figure out how to get that started is just not something I have right now.
Yeah, along those lines, after you and I have had a couple of conversations about that. As you know, I'm a former charter chairman of the Hartford Fair Rent Commission, so I was in that position for over 10 years, almost 10 years. I did talk with Duncan Forsythe, our town council, and asked him to do a little research. One of his, off the top of his head, one of the things he mentioned was he thought because of our size, that trying to go in with several other towns would be the best way to do it. I haven't heard back from them yet, but I'll keep everybody posted on that. I did happen to mention that briefly to the first select woman in Eastford, but it was just in a multi-conversation or a bunch of stuff. But I think it's something we can look into.
I think it's a great idea. There's more power in those numbers.
Yeah.
Melissa, one of the questions I've had is, it was my understanding that in the state of Connecticut, you cannot increase a person's rent until whatever the issues are, safety, whatever issues have been addressed.
So the law is that you can raise somebody's rent any amount as long as that you give them 30 days notice. If there's something wrong with your apartment house, whatever you're renting, you have to file a grievance with the court, and then you have to pay your rent directly to the court, and they hold it in escrow until whatever the claim you filed is solved.
Okay, that makes sense, but that rent that you would be paying to the court is the new rent or the
Yes.
original rent?
The new rent. And then the court would decide if you get refunded the whole amount, or just you have to pay the original amount and you get back the difference.
That's
So
that's one of the functions that if we did have a fair rent commission, they become sort of a mediator, set guidelines. When I was with the Fair Rent Commission in Hartford, we set maximums of increase, standards like that, and we reviewed. We were the only commission in Hartford at the time that had arrest abilities for enforcement of code violations by owners. That escrow was our biggest resource in order to get lessors to do work.
And they paid it directly to.
We had at the time, now we're talking many, many years ago with the Hartford Fair Rent Commission, but at the time we had a separate escrow account that the rent payers would pay us to the Fair Rent Commission. We put it into the escrow account until everything had been resolved. So it's one of the functions that a Fair Rent Commission can do and complements that whole. The courts are so backed up,
Is there special legislation that covers that?
Yes. Yeah, you mean fair rent commissions?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And that's, when I talked to Duncan, that's what I asked him to do a bit of a summary for, so what the process would be for us to consider that.
Did he give a timeline for when he'd get back to us?
He did not, and I'll follow up with him.
But that's like all I really
So-
have. People still call me with complaints and issues, and one tenant who was on the news story. She keeps claiming, whether it's true or not, that she's being personally attacked now by Up Realty. So,
Which complex is she in?
Birch.
Birch Hill?
Mhm.
Okay.
I know that when I was trying to work with Up Realty, I mean, literally, I had a person, the first person that I talked with literally lied to me. It was proven right afterwards.
Yeah.
And I was so startled that they felt that they could. And this is where it was a situation where someone called because there was a very large tree. I'd say it was probably 30 inches or more in circumference in front of their apartment that they were afraid was going to fall on the apartment. So I went out there, and when I did, I could push on that tree and make it move. So I happened to I saw a person with a truck there and went to talk to him, and I found out that he worked for the company. And then this other guy showed up, and he said he was the property manager, and he was not. He literally was not. And I just said, this is a safety concern. You need to take care of this tree. And I eventually, I assume they did, but with other visits to other of their rental properties, it was quite obvious that their focus was not on the tenants. We had a tenant, a young family with a baby who didn't have drinkable potable water for over 9 days before I actually stepped in. And with that, you had to have the state water group come in, that even Eastern Highlands couldn't handle that. And it took forever to get them to get the pipes or whatever it was fixed. But and this was during it was during
Ashford Hills apartment on Varga Road.
Give me a second, I got to remember which one because I went to multiple ones.
That's the big one on Varga Road. I
It
just mentioned that.
it may have been. What did happen though is ultimately when I went out and looked at some other ones, and I took our building inspector with me to one of them, and there was water in the basements, there was mold all over everything in the basement. There was we took pictures. They're probably on your business cell phone, Bill.
So people now don't have laundry or storage.
Right, they couldn't use the laundry, and the mold was creeping up the back stairs it was literally all over the place. And creeping up the back stairs towards the back entrances of the apartments. And what we saw was that they didn't have a sump pump hookup. So there was no intent to get the water out of there.
Yeah.
And it was in 2 different buildings that I saw it. So it's the conditions, literally the first time I went out there, it truly brought me to tears, because these people are paying good money to live in a decent place. They love living in Ashford, and they have to live in that.
Yeah, they're
And
pretty
it's just,
disgusting.
sorry,
They're pretty disgusting with the
very
mold.
disgusting.
There's been, like,
There was a
sewage
cracked
backup.
ceiling in a
Yeah.
child's bedroom that clearly had been patched badly, but it was definitely bowing over the kid's bed. And screens missing, screen doors missing, steps missing out of the back, and just unbelievable. So I have no doubt that that a lot of things haven't been fixed the way they should have been. And as Eastern Highlands said, this company is well known to Eastern Highlands.
Yeah, my understanding, they have holdings in several local communities around us, and they're having the same sort of issues. Okay, well, Melissa, thank you very much for joining us. Stay tuned.
Melissa, thank you
No
for what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know what else to do, but I'm happy
Well,
to keep working
let me
on
know
it.
where I can, let me know where I can help, okay?
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, also under new business, item B, discuss and or act upon transfer station upgrades. I just had this put on the agenda because, and I've been trying to keep you folks informed. Yesterday, I did send you some descriptions and the proposal for the new guard station up
Yep.
there that would be installed. Well, what's nice about it, it's, you can use it as a utility unit. It could be moved wherever we need it at the time. Basically, it has a plug-in that'll have electricity brought to it.
Mhm.
It comes, the one that I'm recommending comes with HVAC.
Mhm.
But the intention is eventually, once we get everything sorted out, is where we're widening the driveway at the beginning of the transfer
Mhm.
station, to have it there in the center of the road.
Mhm.
And anybody that comes in, their stickers will be checked.
Yep.
They'll be stopped there and but that particular unit is running $7,000. It's a refurbished unit. I did price a comparable new one. That's about $11,000.
Mhm.
From everything that I've seen and what I've heard, and I've checked up on some of the background of these distributors, they're very reputable. They do it all over the country. 7,000 would be delivered, no cost, and of course, there wouldn't be any tax on it. And what I'd be recommending is that we pay this out of our NIPS funds, which presently has about $16,000 in it.
Yep.
And those funds are pretty much dedicated to transfer station related objectives. So I think it fits right in with that. I'd like to go ahead and sign that contract. We're probably talking about a delivery sometime around July 1st.
Bill,
Yeah,
did is the transfer station committee involved in this? It sounds like you're doing it.
They
How
have-
often have they,
they-
how often have they met?
they've met once and I gave them an overview of all of this and they were very receptive to that. I have been keeping Terry Wakeman, who is the new chairman, and Keith Lipker, who is the, I guess, vice chairman / secretary, to pass on whatever information I have to the rest of the committee. We have recommended that they have a meeting sooner rather than later because we do want to formalize exactly what we're doing with the new transfer station tickets. And I think we ought to do a new pamphlet. It's many, many years since that's been upgraded. And a cover letter to do a mailing and that sort of thing. I know in the past we've mailed these stickers out, which we can do, but what I'd like to do is have our staff up there, at least when we're going through the transition of new tickets, be able to issue tickets themselves up there. And go through the criteria that they need about proving residency and everything of everybody they'd be issuing them to, and then figuring that out. But those are one of the things that I think that we're going to be looking at. The advisory committee, obviously, the transfer station's an advisory committee to us, but that's one of the things that I'd like to be asking them to give us their recommendations on. But the answer is yes, we have been trying to keep them updated as much as possible, and they tell me that they're in support of everything that we're doing right now.
Yeah, I thought that they would be the ones advising us. Not us advising them.
It's a mutual
The-
partnership, Catherine.
Well, do they have
The,
the authority to make financial decisions and
No.
orders?
No,
Okay.
No, and actually, I'm not in favor of buying the used one. I'm in favor of buying the new one. I see no reason not to. We have the money. I
Well, let's see
saw
what
the
new one costs.
picture.
Do we know the price on the new
a
one?
new one's about
Yeah,
11,
it's 11,000.
11 and change.
So I would prefer that we got the new one instead of one that's gonna break down faster.
I think it's a 3-year warranty on the new or a refurbished. I'm not gonna object. I was trying to save a few bucks, but we do have that money at hand. We have
Yeah.
not utilized it yet. If that's the board's feeling, I'm happy to order a new one.
Well, I mean, put it on the committee. I mean, let them.
Well, they're in favor.
I think you're trying to get this done by July 1st.
I would, and I'd like to get it ordered. Now, there was some urgency because the one that I was talking about for 7, they don't normally, refurbished don't normally come with HVAC and all that. This happens to be one that they were renting out, they took back, that they felt they could refurbish.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
looked pretty
want, I
beat.
didn't want to lose that one.
Yeah, it looked pretty beat up in the picture.
The interior anyway, the exterior looked good, the interior, that it had just come in, so he told me that it, it needed some work. They'll replace the carpeting or whatever that's in there. Again, I'm certainly not gonna have any objection if the board is comfortable. I'd like to get the order in hand because it's gonna be a little bit of a waiting time.
Well, let me ask you this, with our NIP money that's come in before, where did it go?
Nowhere.
Nowhere.
That's why we've accumulated.
That's why we have 16K.
16K. Yeah, we just got to check in. I believe it was last week for, I think it was 5,400 or 5,600. That's why it's now 16 plus.
Yeah, because before we got about 10.5.
Yeah.
It's
The other
sad
things
because
that I was thinking is of paying for out of that NIP money would be the new stickers, would be a mailing, the new
Yeah.
brochure. Certainly if we buy the new one for 11, we'll have money left in that fund to utilize for the items I just mentioned also.
well, again, I think, I would prefer the new one because I like to make sure that we get quality, true quality, and the, refurbished with something that's been,
Rented.
the electrical units or whatever that have already been used and everything. I'm not comfortable with using the refurbished one, but that's me.
Any feeling on that, Roger?
No, I mean, I'm sure, I never dealt with a rental company in this aspect, but if they're warranting either for 3 years, I don't know.
Do you want to make a motion, Catherine, to go with a new unit?
Yes, I'll make the motion that we purchase the new unit. And I don't know what to call it,
Guard
transfer
station.
station unit.
Yeah, it's a guard booth.
Do we know the delivery date of a new unit, by the way?
I'll confirm that, but I've been talking to him in generalities because I didn't want to do it until I got some direction from the board.
Can I finish my motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, for $11,000 and not to exceed $12,000.
Okay.
I will second it, but with conversation here. I'm all for it. I mean, again, I thought I want to make sure that we can get this thing in quickly, not really kick this down the road. I hate to see this turn into the generator, where we can't get it for through the summer or what
8
have you.
months. Yeah, I'm told, and I'll certainly take that up, but he asked me and I said, I thought we'd be best prepared to shoot for July 1st. And he said he wouldn't have a problem with that. I'll certainly confirm that.
Okay.
Bill, when will the resurfacing and that's being done down there for a turnaround for cars, when will that be done?
I'm gonna have to confirm with Joe. At one point I was told by the middle of June. We did have to pull our folks off of there because the Southworth Drive project was moved up by our contractor by 2 weeks. So I'm going to assume we're still at the middle of June.
So in order for this to work, we need to have the tickets, the pamphlet, the cover letter, everything ready at the same time we get that guard station put in.
That's best case scenario, yes.
And one of the things you have to consider, and the transfer station committee needs to consider is if in fact we're not doing a mailing, and I don't agree with doing a mailing, I think people should have to prove, you know, that they live here and pay taxes here, basically. Bear with me a second here. If in fact they're going to issue the tickets, the stickers, or tickets at the point of entry, how are they going to do that quickly? Because what you're going to have a situation where cars are going to be backed up and could end up backed up all the way out to, 74.
Well, we've done some thinking on that, and in fact, one of our highway crew asked me to meet him down there, which I did, and I thought he had a legitimate, because I've explained to them what the concept is that we have. And what he suggested would be for the first 2 weeks, and keep in mind, we have a forklift truck, and with this new guard station, one of the selling factors of it can be moved from place to place as you need it. But initially, for the first 2 weeks, you know where the back gate is that leads to the back of the highway department?
Yes.
He's suggesting we set up the booth down there with 1 or 2 guys or attendants and do the transition down there for the first 2 weeks of the issuance of the new tickets and everything. That way, he said, and I think it's a legitimate recommendation, that anticipating there will be a backup, that we can back them up in the back area near where the put and take facilities are, instead of having them at the front gate and spilling out on Upton Road. So that's one of the things that we've just been thinking about that. After we get through with the original rush, I don't think you're going to have a problem with that, doing that up where we're doing the turnaround right now. But I think looking ahead and trying to avoid a backup on Upton Road, potentially all the way up to 74, could be addressed that way. I thought it was a good suggestion.
I think it's a good suggestion as well. You can set up cones. We did this before for food programs and other things.
Yep.
But that has to be advertised big time, like on the front page, the front cover of the Ashford Citizen.
Yep.
So that it kind of jumps out at people, and put on the town website and mentioned at our selectmen meetings and any other meetings we can think of.
Yep.
Again, there's so many pieces that have to come together, and I am concerned that the transfer station committee has only met once.
I'll
Because
talk
I think
to Terry about that. I know Chris
This is-
was calling him last week because we were recommended that they convene a meeting as soon as possible, and he had some issues that he couldn't make it, or Chris couldn't get a hold of him. I'm not sure what happened there, but I ran into him actually at the Hungarian dinner, Catherine, and told him that we'd like to get together and get a meeting, another meeting in place. So I'll mention that to him again.
Well, because, all of this has been kind of delayed because the transfer station committee was created when I was first selectman.
Yep.
So this is a couple years, going on a couple years. So, and again, all the pieces have to come together at the right time. And that's not something that I think is totally coordinated or thought through by the first selectman. I think that's something where the transfer station committee needs to be actively involved. This was their charge. This is part of their charge. So that if in fact they're not meeting, they're not talking about any of the other issues that we have at the transfer station,
Yeah, so is July 1st.
which are numerous. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things we're going to look at. I mean, I've talked about delivery of the unit by July 1st. We may have to look at August 1st. For the kickoff on this.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
Catherine's point, this is multifaceted. There's a lot involved. It's a I look at it as a reorganization of our
Mhm.
whole operation up there. I'm going to anticipate, I have not received anything in writing, but I understand that one of our players up there, one of our employees, is going to be leaving sometime in August. So we'll be hiring new staff. We've got approval in the budget effective July 1st to bring on another utility person, a DPW person that would help up there. So it's multifaceted and complex. And I agree. I mean, the transfer station, most of those people have been doing this for a long time. I'm led to believe they are being kept informed, but I'll remind Terry and ask him that we'd like another meeting sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I'd like to know when that meeting is, because I think I'd like to attend as well,
Okay.
just to observe.
Yeah. All right,
Thank
well,
you.
we've got a motion on the floor to authorize me to order a new guard station for an amount not to exceed $12,000. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
I
Thank you, folks.
I hope this encourages the transfer station operators to take good care of this building, this small building, if you will, better than they have for the current station.
I agree. All of those buildings, I mean, if you look at them closely, even the put and take buildings and the book vault that we have there, they're all on their last legs and need refurbishing and whatever. And to be quite candid, that transfer station needs better maintenance.
It absolutely does.
There's no question to me that there's room for. We've made improvements, and I appreciate the work that the transfer station committee has done over the years. But it's tired up there right now, and it needs some, not only a major operational upgrade, but also the facilities themselves need to be. And I'm hoping this maintenance person that we bring on can help with that too. So
Yeah, and having seen how some other transfer stations are operate, I would hope that our operations become more crisp and professional.
I hear you. All right, I'm going to move on. I'd like to have a motion to add a item to address a tax refund.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Motion is added to the agenda. Chris, you have a is Chris with us?
Yep. Tax refund citing statute 12-129 to Nicholas Marasotis in the amount of $1,594.78.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
We have-
Seconded.
Seconded.
Roger beat you on that one. Roger made the motion, Catherine seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. I'd like
So
to,
I was going to make your motion to add the citizen.
discussion
the agenda?
for discussion and or action on the Ashford Citizen.
So
Okay,
moved.
seconded.
We have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All in favor of adding this to the agenda, signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. I've had several meetings with Colleen DePercio, our new editor, who's very anxious to get going and has already been meeting with people. I know she's had at least 2 meetings that I'm aware of with Sherry about transition. And Sherry has been wonderful in helping with this and coordinating with Colleen and upgrading her on the methods that she uses and everything else. Our board had discussed, and I had discussed this also with Savage and with Colleen, that I know at one time we talked about a hard drive, a separate computer with a dedicated room here Colleen seems to think, and Savage agrees, that we'd be best suited by dedicating a laptop with 2 monitors for her to work with. Colleen seems to think it would be easier for her to do that from home. But a laptop would give her the utility if she wanted to come into town hall for whatever reason to use it then. We've also talked about with Savage, the software, the publisher software, having that dedicated. And there's some implications of that with additional software through 365 or whatever. It's got to be compatible.
Office 365.
Office 365. And anyway, they're all ready to go with that. I've got an initial price from Savage of about $1,750 for the whole package. And what I'd like to ask the board is for authority to go ahead and order that equipment. Our deadline for our next issue is coming up on the 20th. And while Colleen is trying to piecemeal and put stuff together, it's kind of critical that we get this equipment in place right away. So I don't know.
I'll make the motion. I will make the motion for purposes of discussion.
Okay,
To approve the acquisition of a laptop and setup for the Ashford Citizen editor, including software for not to exceed $1,750.
Being recorded.
okay.
Make that 1,800 because
Well,
you
to be safe, friendly amendment, Catherine, could you say for an amount not to exceed 2,000?
yes. This is for the purpose of discussion. Because
Yes.
I have some issues around this.
Is there a section?
I'll make the second.
There's a second for the motion on the floor.
Okay, so now the issues. When we talked before, we were not anticipating that someone would be working from home on this. It is my understanding that Colleen did make a statement or whatever, saying that she travels and that her mother would cover for her. That's not what we set up here. So my concern is we don't have any rules laid out for how this is going to operate. In other words, who is doing it, where they're doing it, and the intention was that the work was going to be done in town offices. This is town work. The only time it would ever be done from home is if it were inclement weather or something like that. So this is part of my concern about this, is that when we talked before, the person was going to be operating from town offices. And the other thing we haven't talked about is our review of what's being put in the Citizen.
Yeah, some policy and procedures to ensure that.
Exactly. We don't have any of that in place, and we need that in place right away so that Colleen understands what she's operating with and what rules she's operating under.
Well, to address your first thing, I've had numerous meetings with Colleen, and her mother has never been mentioned in any of those conversations.
No, it didn't come up in a conversation with you.
This is the first I've heard of that. So
I want you to think about that. Okay, but it's true.
Excuse me.
You've
It
had
is
those
true.
conversations with Colleen?
Have you had those conversations with Colleen?
No, it was conveyed to me through the town clerk's office,
All right, I'll certainly look into that.
because they're working with her.
My
Okay.
my understanding is, and I appreciate that from the town clerk's office on a transitional basis. But my understanding is that Colleen was handling this. Felt very comfortable with her knowledge of publisher and everything. I have like I said, I've never heard of her mom involved in this.
So but going back,
certainly talk to her
going,
about
yeah, taking a laptop home that has access to our server, et cetera, is a pretty significant thing. So, I just want to make sure that that's handled appropriately.
What
But
is-
again,
Sorry.
Colleen has a laptop right now that I believe is on town server. But I've told her
but her
that,
work, the
that
work
our
that she's doing,
intention, let me just
Yeah.
finish this, Captain. Our intention from the beginning is that the citizen be totally standalone and not involve anything in the registrar's office or,
correct.
and what Savage is recommending, it not even be connected with the town server. That it be a standalone on its own software and not involved in that at all.
So there's no backup?
It'll be a cloud backup. You know that stuff more than I do, Catherine, on,
Well, I'm asking you
Well,
what the
yeah,
backup would be.
I go with what Savage tells me is needed and what their recommendations are. But it would be a standalone backed up with cloud and whatever else that they do. I know that we had talked, and I, in fact, even showed Colleen the historian's office that's presently being used as for another use. That's a temporary situation. But and talked about a hard drive there, thinking that somebody would be coming in and working in the building.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I know, a lot of what Sherry has been doing is on a laptop from home. And this wouldn't be any different than what Sherry has been doing in that capacity. I mean, just for this issue, I think she said the weekend before last, she spent 12 hours working on it from home. I have total trust in Colleen, and if she says she can do something, I'm going to take her at her word that she can until that's.
But that's
proved
not,
otherwise.
but that's not what we as a board discussed.
No, and we're discussing right now I think when we talked about that from the beginning, we didn't even have an editor in mind. We were talking about scenarios that we should consider. And I certainly think that's something we consider, but when I hear from Colleen that, and from Savage, that having a laptop will give her the utility, being able to use that room if she needs to, or to be able to do it from home, sounds like the best case scenario to me.
I don't have the issue with her having the laptop. My issue is the working from home. Okay, working on the town business from home. The other thing is,
Why
You know,
wouldn't you have had that
Sherry-
issue with Sherry?
I didn't have the issue with Sherry because Sherry has many, many years of ethics training. Colleen has been working as a registrar registrar of voters. Okay, her background is very different from that of someone who has been the editor, who has met ethics requirements, has had the proper training for how you handle certain kinds of information, had enough had enough wherewithal to challenge immediately something that had been brought before her that was not appropriate to put into the citizen. So this is where I think that until I'm comfortable that we have everything in place. I mean, we haven't even written up what this person is doing and how they're going to be operating so that she's clear about how she's doing it. It sounds like it's just kind of, a little free for all right now. And I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, I mean, Sherry is spending time with her and explaining her procedures and what have you. I mean, it's not like she's just kind of winging it, I don't believe.
There were a couple of things that I heard that gave me pause. And if you're not having discussions with Sherry directly, I suggest that you do that.
Okay.
So do we not want to order this equipment?
The equipment is fine. The working from home is not yet. So
In
the
your-
equipment
in your
makes
opinion,
sense because that
yeah.
means she can.
All due
equipment makes-
respect, in your opinion, it's not good yet. In my opinion, I have total trust in Colleen to be able to work from home as our past editor has done from time to time. I don't
I'm
see,
not-
so just to be clear, Catherine, that's your opinion, not my opinion, or so far, as far as I know, not the board's opinion,
The board,
our board. There's
when
three.
we talked about this, we did not talk about someone working from home.
Well, I mean, we
As a
didn't talk
board.
about Colleen at our, even at our last meeting, so this is all new, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
Bill,
We're just kind of moving through this.
Do you have a problem with Colleen?
I
working
don't,
from
you
home?
know, from working from home as a
It's-
teacher
it's-
and what have you, I mean, I've done all sorts
It's-
of stuff at home on my computer. I've dealt, you
It's-
know, to what extent is she dealing with anything that is private of nature, privacy of nature or concern? In terms
this
of,
isn't,
I don't know.
it's not about the person. It's about the role.
Okay.
And the person, and in this case, we have someone who's inexperienced.
With the Citizen. She's worked on a number of publications and took part in that, from what I'm told.
Government publications?
I'd have to find out exactly what
Well, let's just have a conversation in terms of, I mean, you know, we're gonna need the laptop regardless.
Right.
But we need to obviously have a conversation. We obviously need to talk to Sherry and get something set up here in terms of, you know, a policy and procedures, if that's what we're gonna develop here.
That's my big thing is the policy and procedures around this, because right now we have nothing.
Okay. Yeah, but again, I would love to have a conversation and to better understand, you know, why we can't have work done at home. I mean, we're certainly willing to let our town workers work from, I mean, I'm just saying, she's
she's a town worker. right?
yeah. Yeah, I just want to know why.
It's not about the person.
Well, let's get the computer moving.
All right, there's a motion on the floor to approve purchase, my authorizing me to go ahead and purchase the equipment as recommended by Savage for an amount not to exceed 200,000. Any more discussion on that issue?
No, not 200,000, 2,000.
Wow. Thank you.
Go big or go home.
2,000.
2,000,
I
yeah.
don't know where that came from. I didn't even go to 20,000. All in favor of the motion on the floor, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
When are we gonna put together the policy and procedures for this?
We have a meeting scheduled for next Monday. Do you want me to ask Colleen to join us? Do you want to set up a special meeting? And ask
I
Colleen?
think we should draft something to go through as a board.
Yeah.
To, set that up.
Well, I mean, we've talked about, we don't even know what, we haven't even clearly established what the timelines are for publishing all of this. And that's, again, the sort of thing that should be included in the
Colleen
guidelines.
is been
Sherry did that.
Yeah.
Colleen has been trying to work under the assumption that our deadline is 10 days away.
Okay.
And I know she's been working with Sherry about advertisers and the process for that. Excuse me. So anyway, she's been doing preparatory work, but without the equipment for a dedicated laptop. She's somewhat handicapped right now.
Yep.
Let me get that in motion. You
So
folks
how quick-
are thinking of some rules and regulations you've got in mind. Why don't you send me your thoughts? And then we'll set up a meeting and
Hash it out.
we can go over them and we can
Is-
hash it out. I
is-
do think,
It's not rules and regulations, it's policy and procedures.
Okay,
whatever you want to call it.
Alright.
And take it from there. Okay, anything else?
oh, did we vote on the laptop?
I thought we did, but maybe that's when I call it 200,000.
I'll
But
say aye.
I,
Okay,
items for our next agenda. We'll carry this year.
Uh,
on.
So
Yep.
this is citizen policy and procedures.
Anything else?
And I'm sure that there'll be others that'll be interested in what those are.
Sounds like it.
yeah,
Considering we've had them challenged.
Okay, I've got 1019.
so moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Oh, thank you very much. Have a good day, folks.